Looks like participants are starting to log in. We're going to go ahead and start recording. And welcome to another Tuesday talk for the 2022 Norton Sports Health KDF training program for the mini and the marathon. So as you guys are logging in, I'm just going to do a couple housekeeping things. We are talking today about speed work, why it's important, how to do it, how it can be beneficial. So speed work as far as track work, the hill repeats we do, and then also maybe some assistance on how to work on your pacing, how to find your pace. A lot of you guys ask me, what pace should I do this at? What pace should I do that at? So we're going to try to answer that today from one of our experts. So a little housekeeping. Again, we are on, all the participants are on mute, and also you are not on video. So no worries there if you're still in your pajamas today. And we are recording this, so we're going to post this video later on in the KDF training group and on the Facebook page. So make sure you check it there in case you can't hang on the whole time. So let's kick things off. So we have our special guest here, Coach Tim Holman. He is coming to us live from DuPont Manual High School from his classroom. I love the decorations in the background. So just tell us a little bit about your background as far as when it comes to developing runners.
Okay. So yeah, I wear two hats. I'm a teacher. I teach government and politics here at DuPont Manual, and I'm also a coach. I've been coaching over 20 years now. Started at the middle school level and was at a school called Iroquois Middle School, and then was at Mesite Middle. And then I've been coaching here at Manual in some way, shape, or form over the last 12, 13 years. And I coach both boys and girls cross country. I have a wonderful assistant coach in one Coach Fish, who does a wonderful job, particularly with keeping our kids healthy and diagnosing little aches and pains here and there. But I coach both girls and boys cross country, and we've had a good amount of success over the years. We have a big team. So despite the fact that we have, teams that consistently finish in the top of the state every year, we also have, folks out there that are running 30-minute 5Ks. And we're a no-cut sport. We've got, I want to say, Fish, we had maybe 80 kids on the team last year, give or take. Usually about 45 girls, 35 boys. So, and we have all kinds. We have, everything from freshmen to seniors, everything from, kids that are competing for state championships to kids that are just, out there doing their best. And our only expectation is that everybody work hard. So that's sort of my background.
Awesome. Very extensive background. Of course, working mainly with teenagers, but we are talking about adults today. And honestly, it's the same across the board. How to get faster, how to find your pace, and how to work on that. So you have a presentation, right?
I don't have a presentation. I was just going to do a sort of talk today, but I can flesh out any terms that people need in the chat. So I'm sort of flying by the seat of my pants today, but I've been at this long enough where I think I can talk pretty well about these concepts without necessarily having a little PowerPoint. So
okay. So with that being said, I'm sorry to interrupt. With that being said, guys, so as you have questions, please put them in the little Q&A section on the bottom. That way we'll be able to address them and answer them as we go through our program. So no question is a bad question. We want to hear it, put it in there, and we will do our best to address it. So I guess, Coach Holman, if you just want to kind of take it topic by topic, either starting with why we do hill repeats, why we do track work, helpful ways to find your pace. So if you just want to take it topic by topic, we'll see what kind of questions pop up.
That's great. I will probably start with hills simply because that's usually the progression that we make within our program, which is, and I think the progression that we make within our program is a progression that anybody needs to take if they're developing as a longer distance runner, which is, obviously you start with base work, and you build your aerobic strength. And that's what a lot of you, and I think people are most comfortable doing, is just sort of logging the miles. And frankly, that's all I do anymore. I'm not a competitive runner, but I just enjoy going out and logging miles. And we call this our base phase. Some coaches refer to it as a strength phase because you're building that aerobic strength. And just so that you know, this is always the lowest hanging fruit. One of, I know some various coaches around the country. One of the guys that coaches, or the guy that coaches the Bowerman Track Club out of Portland, Oregon, has a saying that strength is speed. So, as I get into this discussion of speed, I think it's really important to realize that there's really good reasons to do speed work. But if you really want to get better, if you want to run faster at any level, of 5K up to a marathon, the strength is key. The mileage is key, and putting in that gradual work over time is what's going to make you faster. I give the example, the guy who won the last 2 cross country championships is a guy from BYU named Connor Mance. And everybody marveled at Connor Mance's kick at the end of the race. After the 10K, he was just driving and basically won pretty clearly the last couple of times around. The thing about Connor Mance is, if you put him into a 400-meter foot race with basically anybody in the NCAA, he'd be lucky to finish in the middle of the pack. He doesn't have a lot of raw speed, but he's got the strength to be able to run fast at the end of a race. So I think that, this idea of speed as a means of developing that kind of next level is a bit misleading. So I'll talk about why it's important in just a second. And I'm sorry I got off on that. The last time I spoke here, we talked more about threshold and tempo work, and I'm happy to talk about that a little bit later. But that's really the piece we add in secondly, is we start to add in some stuff at that tempo or threshold pace where we're really working on our ability to process lactic acid. But let's get at the key point, which is hill work. Hill work has a number of different benefits. We do hills for a number of different reasons. And I'm going to set out sort of 3 different ways that you can do hills that help you in 3 different ways. First, we like to do long hills. And I'm not sure what Coach Fish has set up for you, but long hills are probably my favorite if we're talking about developing people for longer distance, for 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, and stuff like that. Great place to do this is at Iroquois, because Iroquois provides you with a long, steady hill. There's good hills in other parts of the city for sure. Anybody that's spent time in Cherokee knows there's hills there. But pound for pound, my feeling is best hills are in Iroquois, especially that top hill, because you can basically head from that gazebo and it's at least a mile up to the basketball court. Somebody measured it. I think it's like 1.4. Let's talk about what hills do for you. 1, hills force you into better stride. So it forces you to drive the knees as you go up the hill. It forces you into better body alignment. And as long as you're doing the hills properly, which is head up, and you're not just kind of looking at the ground in front of you, and you're driving up the hills, it's a great way to help with your power and your stride length. The other really good benefit of hills, they don't pound as much. So as you're going up a hill, you're not hitting as hard on the pavement, on the track, whatever it is that you might be doing fast work on. So it's lower impact. Thing you got to be careful about whenever you're doing hills is the way back down. So what we often do is make sure that we go into a very light jog, sometimes even a little bit of a walk on the way down the hill. But what hills are a nice transition into the kind of interval track work that Coach Fish was talking about earlier. So I often will do these long intervals that will then transition into the sort of longer intervals that you do on a track. If you're doing, let's say, 1Ks on a track, a 400-meter hill is a nice intro into that. So it builds strength. It builds stronger, what we call running efficiency, which is making sure that you're running in the most efficient fashion. The other thing I like to do are short hills. Short hills build a lot more rudimentary strength. And one of the things we've started doing the last few years are something called hill bounds, where we will literally bound up a hill. It's almost like this Russian concept. Well, it basically is a Russian concept called plyometrics. What this does is it builds more of that raw strength. You know, one of the things we talk about, and one of the reasons we do a little bit of barefoot running and stuff, is when you're coming off, if you have strong toes and you get a slightly stronger push off, think about how that manifests itself over a long run. A lot of people try and stride longer by reaching out in front of them, reaching that leg out in front of them. The problem with that is that can often lead to overstriding, and it can cause you to break. So a lot of people that have natural shin splint problems and develop those sorts of things are because they're overstriding. What's better is to be able to propel yourself. So as you're propelling off of your foot pad, if you can get a little bit more strength, if you can develop that strength through plyometrics, through things like hill bounds, where you're literally bounding up a hill, usually only 10 total steps when we do those. Those sorts of things allow you to more naturally increase the length of your stride. And again, we're not talking about a lot. If you can, if your stride is increased by this amount and you can still maintain the same repetition while doing that, then think about that over the course of a race. So that's why we do things like hill bounds. And those things we actually introduce early. We often do these on recovery days. I always base our training on an intensity recovery day cycle. The common standard is that it takes 48 hours to recover from a hard workout. We know we're training well when our runners feel really good on their intensity days, not in the middle of the workout, but good going into the workout. They feel like they're prepared, and they feel terrible during recovery days. The whole idea of recovery day is you're recovering. So you're going out. But what I often find is helpful is that on those recovery days, while we're recovering from our aerobic work, or we're recovering from intervals, or we're recovering from a threshold run, we can still work other energy systems. So that's a great day to do plyometrics. That's a great day to do planks. That's a great day to do hip work. That's a great day to do hill bounds and things like that. But I also think there's something really important about short hills. And I actually like to do these on softer surfaces. If you can find a grass hill somewhere, backside of Seneca Park works well for this. Dog Hill, or what it's really called, Barringer Hill, it's a little too steep. We do it just because high schoolers like the challenge of it. But I like to do a shorter hill and really, really going quickly up that hill. Generally,
so the hills that we do, we consistently do, we were doing Big Four Bridge, the ramp on the Indiana side.
That's a great.
But now we'll be alternating between Hogan Hill and the hill in Cherokee, Iroquois, that is to the left of the amphitheater. So both of those are about a quarter of a mile. They're not too intimidating. They're not too steep, but starting out, I suggest that people just work on getting to the top at a consistent pace.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they kind of get that under their belts, then starting to add in a little faster speed to the top, and then your recovery.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think it's, look, we get hung up on pace, right? Because we have these watches, and actually Apple's crap for them. I have it for another reason. But, you know, we have our Garmin's. Throw that stuff out the window when you're doing hill stuff. There should be no focus on pace per se. It should all be effort. So what generally when we do our longer hills, like the ones that Fish is describing, we will often do these at race pace effort. And that's something you just have to feel. But I love the idea of the pace you need to be doing is one that is consistent across the hill. So if you're finding that you have more energy as you're progressing up the hill, you need to start faster. If you're finding you're dying before you get to the top of the hill, you need to start slower. And, you know, that's one of those things that's great about hill repeats is that you get a fresh shot every time. But I would totally throw any kind of pacing out of that. The only thing that I might look at is like your BPM, you know, your beats per minute or something like that. Because obviously, you know, those are different thresholds for different ages and categories and so on. But, you know, you don't want to be redlining up these hills. So yeah, that's a really good point.
So just moving to track work, I specifically want to talk about that today because tonight is our very first track work day, and we're at the Norton Healthcare Sports and Learning Center, the indoor track. Of course, I chose the indoor track work on probably the most beautiful day so far this year, so sorry about that. It's going to be 60 degrees outside and we're going to be inside, but it is a 200-meter indoor track, in case all of you aren't familiar, but we'll be there tonight. So we're just going to do, starting out, beginner friendly 200-meter repeats with a 200-meter recovery in between. So maybe give our folks some tips on how to best approach this, especially for people that honestly, they may not have they haven't been on a track since they were in high school. So maybe some tips.
So I love that. I actually do, even in cross country, pretty early on when we get into our track, I love 200-200s. Because what they do is they constantly allow you a sort of fresh shot to find out where you need to be. And again, what we're always looking for distance training is consistency. And that's going to be really hard for you to find early on. I'll have kids, even some of my juniors and seniors, you know, I'll say, hey, I want you guys to run 40 flat on that. And the first one will be a 36. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that's not even close. So one of the things that I might add is that, and I might try to amend Coach Fish's workout here a little bit, is I love to throw a little tempo effort on beforehand. Because what that does is it sort of puts a little bit on your legs to start. The problem with starting out fresh is that you have that tendency to go out a little bit fast. So 200 meters for your traditional track is half of a track. So that's a single turn, single straightaway. You think about a length of a football field, it's twice that. So this is a relatively short track. Are they going to have the bank up for you guys?
I suggested that we drop the bank, especially for this very first one, because I don't want people coming out with massive shin splints. It might be up again for next week. So someone in the chat did ask, what does a 200-200 look like? Again, it's a 200-meter speed work where you're kind of getting a feel for those fast twitch muscles with, I like a 200 recovery as well. So the indoor track is 200 meters, one full lap around. There is also an outdoor track that is available as well that is 400 meters. So that's what Coach Holman was referring to about, you know, half of a loop and half of a loop. So I don't plan to have the bank up tonight as long as they can drop it in time, but it's a challenge. I think Holman has a emergency at the high school.
Sorry,
Everything okay?
I have a few students that are going to be coming in, but they are doing study skills at the end. So I'm going to turn my camera so that none of them are on. But they promised me they'd be very quiet. So
Okay. Hey, we're used to distractions and all sorts of fun things. So we are live, by the way, in case you guys forgot. So again, go ahead and make sure you drop your questions in the Q&A. If you drop them in the chat, that's fine too, and we'll try to address them. And we did have a question here. Can you do the 200 off of a track?
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any suggestions for that, Coach Holman?
So I think it's easier to do that based upon time than any sort of set distance. So, you know, you can do 45 seconds on, 45 seconds off. You can do a minute on, you can do a minute off. These are often referred to as fartlek workouts. So you can find like a consistent path that you do. The only thing that I would recommend for something like that is that you find something that's all the same elevation. So it gets a little tricky. So like the top loop at Seneca Park or something like that is great for something. Whereas if you were going over to like Joe Creason Park, I would stay always down at the bottom or always up at the top. So, you know, one of the big questions is, well, why would I run faster than I do in a longer race? Like, what's the benefit of that? And part of that is if you don't ever run faster than what you do, your body doesn't really know what it can accomplish. So faster running forces us into, unless we're redlining and going at 100%, it forces us into better form, better knee drive, better arm motion, all the things that we need to be doing over a long run. But if everything you do is at sub-race pace, you're never putting yourself into a position to be able to see where you can go from there, right? And that's why, you know, the kids sometimes say, well, why are we running faster than we would run on a 5K? Well, because you're developing runners, and for them, a lot of it is age related. For you all, a lot of it's fitness related. If you do everything at at pace or below pace, you're never sort of allowing your body to experience and see what you can do at a faster pace. So those are all benefits of speed work. And in addition to that, it's also developing that sort of musculature in your legs, in your arms, to be able to develop better driving force that can be replicated over a longer session.
Yeah, and something that you kind of brought up there was, you know, I'm guilty of it as well. A lot of people kind of just get used to running this same slow twitch muscle pace and never really challenging themselves with those fast twitch muscles that maybe we can try to find when we're doing some track work.
Yeah, and sorry for, I might be a little more muffled now, but I'm in the school building with kids, so I have to have a mask on. But you know, to get at this final piece about pace, this is where these things become much more useful. And I know that I have benefited from having these Garmins and things like that help me with my pace. But one of the things you want to make sure you're not doing is doing a race effort in your workouts. We can only go to the well so many times, and especially I've found as we get older, it's harder and harder to go to the well. It's harder and harder to give those really great efforts. So the benefit of interval work is that we're able to, for a limited period of time, go to that level that we might sustain in a race, but also be able to drop back down so that we're not giving that kind of race effort. I generally, whenever I have a runner who performs very well in practice but can't replicate that in a meet or in a race environment, generally means they're overtraining. They're going too hard on their recovery days, or they're redlining on their intensity days. What we want to do is treat training as training, not as races. If all you're doing on your intensity day are creating little race type situations for yourself and going deep into the well on every one of those efforts, all you're going to do is basically put yourself in a hole and not be able to achieve at the level you want to once you get into a race situation. So pace work and speed work like that, longer interval work, often allows us to get up to those levels, to push things, whether it's your lactate threshold, whether it's your VO2 max, to a certain point, then be able to drop back down, recover for a period of time, bring it back up again. So it's getting your body used to that level of effort, but not sustaining that effort in such a way that you're essentially creating races in practice.
So we did have a question in the chat. I went ahead and addressed it, but I kind of wanted to bring it and back and throw it in your court. So someone asked, how often should you do speed work? Now, for this group, I only suggest speed work, which entails hill training and track work, only once a week. But as Coach Holman suggested, when we work with the track and cross country kids, they're doing 2 intensity days, 2 recovery days, and then a long run day. And that's what they do. But these are also 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, tip top shape, training super fast for, 5Ks. So as far as this group that I'm working with, what do you suggest?
No, I think you're right with that, in that, if you're working into doing alternating, maybe one week a hill effort, the next week on the track, and maybe your other intensity days more working at the threshold level, or frankly with this longer stuff, it's probably better to be doing more sort of steady state efforts, stuff where progressive runs where you're working up to marathon pace, things like that. But you're right, this afternoon, half the kids I'm training are half milers. So that has a very different, that has almost a 50-50 aerobic anaerobic mix. And most of what you're doing is almost entirely anaerobic. But I recommend, one day a week working those kind of systems, but you can also do that sprinkle stuff on your recovery day. But the sprinkle stuff has to be really, really short efforts. Some of the things that we do are things like hill bounds, plyometrics like single leg jumps, double leg jumps, box jumps where you jump off a box and then up in the air. But we also do things called fly 30s, where we build up for 30 meters, we go really intensely for 30 meters and then break back down. But we'll probably only do 3 or 4 of those, oftentimes with a 3 to 5 minute break in between each one, so that we're working on that maximum velocity, but not going to the well to do it. The other thing I really like is we do a series of 50 meters where we'll go from 70%, 80%, and 90%. We call those 150 form strides. And that's where you're just progressively getting quicker and quicker, using that good form, the good arm drive, the knees, pushing off the toe. But those things can be sprinkled in on your recovery days, because as long as you're not getting into any kind of like anaerobic threshold, you're working totally different energy systems. So it's recovery runs don't have to just be logging miles. You can add in those other features there.
Yeah, so these would be great things to add into your runs on, Mondays or Wednesdays or Thursdays when it's just mileage, because Tuesdays we're reserving for our hill and track work. So maybe on one of those other weekdays, you sprinkle these things in. And Coach Holman mentioned these are just short little things. Maybe you're running along and you do a couple pickups in a row, and see how they feel. So you don't have to go out and hammer to the ground for all 5 miles on a Wednesday run or anything like that. Save a little bit for the long run, because we're doing very long runs on Saturdays. We're going to start working our way up, especially you marathoners. I mean, we're getting into the teens. We have 13 miles coming up just this Saturday. So you got to save a little energy for that day.
Yeah, and nothing's more valuable for distance runners than that long day. And my 800 runners, my senior 800 runners did 70 minutes last week. They'll be doing 70 minutes again this week. So even kids that are half milers, they're still going out. That's the lowest hanging fruit there, is to go out and put in those good, long, sustained efforts.
Yep. And real quick, guys, get your last minute questions in. We're going to just talk about one more thing. So again, if you have questions, put it in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll answer them live. Last topic I want to just touch on a little bit with your thoughts on trying to find your pace. Everyone always asks me, I don't know what my pace is. I don't know. How do I find it? How do I figure it out? Any tips on that?
Well, it's really a part of it is just being patient with the training process, because the older you are, the longer it takes to get into shape and the quicker you get out of shape. But I see it as a two-part kind of thing, which is the first part is getting to be able to sustain a longer and longer distance. I don't care too much about pace, because what you're doing is simply trying to stay out there for longer and longer. So I'm to the point where I can go out to an hour run at this point. I don't really care very much about my pace right now. I'm just, ultimately I'm trying to extend myself out to 75 minutes. Once I get to 75 minutes, I'm probably going to stay there for a couple of months. Then my goal becomes running that 75 minutes quicker and quicker. But unless you kind of get up to and a lot of you probably have distance goals, the whole goal is not worrying about how fast you're running that 13 miles, especially the first time you run 13 miles. It's just getting through it. Then once you've extended yourself out to 13 miles, then you can start thinking about and progressing at a quicker and quicker pace. But, a lot of it is experimenting with your body. Some of it is running with more experienced runners, but I oftentimes will have some of my younger runners, I'll start them at different spots, because I don't want them relying entirely upon other people. A lot of it is just feeling it right here. But look, these watches can be helpful in that regard. Having a periodic check-in. One of the things that we do is we will do like a mile loop over at Tom Sawyer Park, and we will do that check-in at a mile. I'll have them throw their watches in a bag. They won't use any watches. I'll have a watch and I'll call out the time, and they have to mentally process as they come through the mile every time, okay, am I continuing to maintain this pace? It's sort of like a check-in. So there's something to be said for running with some sort of either a standard watch or one of the satellite watches that can kind of give you that periodic, okay, mile 2 was at 9:15, okay. But there's also something to be said with tossing those off and trying to find it here. But it's difficult. It really is difficult. But you can't really find it unless you're in shape. So everybody's pace for the first, I don't know, if you're over 40, your pace for your first 3 months of training is whatever the hell you can survive. It's just getting through whatever the given workout is. Then once you have that sort of aerobic base, then you can start playing around with your different paces. But we get a little too caught up with that. One of the things I like that Kipchoge says about the long run is he says the long run's like a journey. Has its ups, has its downs, has its periods where you feel good. It has its periods where you feel bad. Enjoy the journey a little bit. We're not metronomes. You know, some people like to run at a clip. I've never been that way. I've always had, over the course of my racing career, over the course of my run career, periods of time where I'm going a little faster, a little slower. We're not machines. So, you know, finding an internal rhythm is important, but not everybody is gonna, you know, run at the exact pace.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how many people get so hung up on their pace. You know, they get so hung up on it that, you know, if it's not the perfect day outside, then they don't even want to go for that run outside. They're going to go on the treadmill because they're so afraid that their Strava is going to show that they were a minute slower because it was cold outside and maybe they were just running slower, you know. And people are just so hung up on that pace. And that's why when every time someone, especially a newer runner to distance running, what should be my pace? And I'm like, I don't know. You have to figure that out yourself.
And here's the greatest thing. Nobody cares. I mean, you're not doing anything that I try to tell this to my kids, like, we're not out on the football field. Like, we're not scoring touchdowns. We're not throwing alley-oop dunks. We're distance runners. Nobody really, like, you wouldn't care so much about what people thought of you if you realized how little they actually did. So just enjoy it. There's something about organic running and just enjoying the process of that and not getting too hung up on, you know, the perfect scenario.
I love that. I love that for saying that. And you made a good point a second ago when you said, you know, if this is your first half marathon, your first marathon, your goal is to just finish. And I tell you all that all the time. Well, I run at this pace. What should be my time? I'm like, I don't care. I just want you to finish. I just want, because, you know, mile 7 is going to feel way different than mile 15, and mile 15 is going to feel way different than mile 22, and 26 is just going to feel, I don't know. It might feel great. It might feel terrible. So you got to look at it like that. Like, if you don't really know what the whole process is going to feel like on race day yet, then your goal is to just finish. So that's the big thing. Anything else? Any other tips, Coach?
Yes, I like it. Oh, and that's Dawn. I know Dawn. Hello, Dawn. Good to see you. I'm glad you're with the group. But yeah, you're exactly right. And we have so many new runners this year for whatever reason. And they all ran up to me last week during their first race. What should I do, Coach? You know what I tell them? Nothing. Just do it. Then once you've experienced it, then we can talk about the process. Like, I talk process a ton with my experienced runners. We have all sorts of strategy and race tactics and things like that. With new runners, I'm just like, just do it a few times, and then you can start thinking about modifying that process.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Sorry, we kind of had some disconnections there and moving around, but we're good. And you provided a lot of great information for my participants in the training program. I really appreciate it.
I'm going to put my my email address into the chat. So if anybody wants to send me a particular question, I don't know if I'll get to it straight away, but I will try to address that at some point.
Appreciate that. And again, thank you for joining us. I'm just going to pop up my little info screen here for you real quick, so you guys remember to stay in the know. We do text alerts. You need to make sure you're on the Facebook group, and that's going to keep you all informed as we go. Tonight, guys, we have indoor track work at the new Norton Healthcare Sports and Learning Center. There it is. And if you are on the text alerts, it'll tell you that you need to park in lot B as in boy. And we all enter in the security door together at 6:20. The track work tonight starts at 6:30, not 6, not our usual 6. So it's at 6:30, but we can't get in there any earlier than 6:20. So make sure you're not getting there at 5:15 and sitting in the parking lot for an hour and a half. Okay, so just be mindful of that, and we'll see you all tonight there. And thank you again, Coach Holman, for joining us. And we will let you go, and I hope everyone enjoys their day, and we will see y'all on the next Tuesday talk. Bye, guys. Thank you.